In the face of a colossal disaster, some clung to life by any means necessary, while others faced death with calm resolve. The old captain, knowing full well that the situation was beyond saving, shut himself in the bridge, filled with self-reproach, and chose to perish alongside the Titanic. The designer, Andrew, regretted not having designed a sturdier ocean liner. He set his watch ahead to the moment when the ship was about to sink and waited quietly for death. An elderly gentleman willingly gave up his spot to women and children, declaring that he would never board a lifeboat before other men. His wife chose to stay by his side, sharing his fate. A mother, trapped in third class, soothed her to young children, allowing them to enter the gates of heaven without fear. In the sweet dreams of a fairy tale world, the banker, Guggenheim, upheld the dignity of gentleman. Dressed in his finest attire, he sat quietly at the staircase, savoring his last glass of wine. He could have boarded a lifeboat, but he didn't want to deprive a woman or child of their chance to escape. What moved people the most were the lonely musicians. They continued their life's work until the very last moment, diligently fulfilling their duties even when hope for survival was slim. Surrounded by the end of the world, they still burned their own lives to offer a final requiem to the panic-stricken people. Soon, the bow of the ship was completely submerged, and everyone started scrambling towards the stern for safety. Jack and Rose were among them. They reached the stern and clung tightly to the railings, knowing that delaying their entry into the water gave them a better chance of survival. Some chose to jump into the water prematurely, only to meet an early demise. Half of the ship was already underwater, and a short circuit plunged the entire vessel into darkness. The sea now a vast expanse of blackness. Suddenly, the ship's hull began to crack, and the massive vessel split in two. The stern section crashed heavily onto the water's surface, dooming the passengers still trapped at the bottom. As the bow sank, the stern, pulled by the weight of the bow, disappeared once more, then stood vertically in the water before starting to sink rapidly. Rose looked utterly despairing, while Jack constantly encouraged her. As the Titanic sank, the two were sucked into the turbulent sea by the currents. Rose, wearing a life jacket, quickly surfaced, only to be pushed back down by someone who mistook her for debris. Jack, with his excellent swimming skills, also surfaced and punched the man in the face to save Rose. They found a floating plank, but it could only support the weight of one person. Jack gave the chance of survival to Rose. That night, over 1,500 people plunged into the icy waters of the Atlantic, crying out for help in despair. The crew members who had fallen into the water blew their whistles, hoping their colleagues would turn the lifeboats around. Mrs. Brown called out for a rescue effort, but no one responded, even when it was their own husbands and children at stake. The leading crew member even threatened to throw them into the sea if they said another word. Helpless and outnumbered, Mrs. Brown had no choice but to give up. Harold was the only crew member who chose to turn back and rescue. He gathered the passengers together to make room for a lifeboat, but it took some time. Meanwhile, the people on the other lifeboats watched indifferently. They would live with guilt for the rest of their lives, never finding forgiveness. As time ticked by, the sea gradually fell silent. Most people succumbed to fear and the cold. Rose shivered uncontrollably from the cold, and Jack had reached his limit with his last The light of life bathed Rose's face. She tried to wake Jack, only to find that he had already stopped breathing. Rose felt there was no longer any meaning for her to go on living and planned to lie there and sleep forever with her beloved. But suddenly, she remembered the promise she had made to Jack. With all her might, she cried out for help, yet her voice was too faint for the crew members to hear. Rose let go of Jack's frowning hand and bid him a final farewell. And so, Jack sank forever into the silent expanse of the sea. Rose rolled into the water and, with the last of her strength, fought desperately to stay alive in the icy, biting waters of the Atlantic. She made her way to the stranded crew members and blew the whistle of life.